you know, we know we're gonna we're gonna summarize the chapter, but I say we dive into one of the theories here, Ez.
Okay, let's do it.
Let me raise. Can I raise a question?
Go ahead. Yeah. Yes.
All right, Ez. Let's raise a question here for this week's reading. Who left the Dragonglass weapons in beyond the wall that Ghost finds?
Good Lord. You're just getting right after it. I mean, absolutely. I love it.
I say let's go right into it.
So, I mean, okay, the whole thing is that when this is found, it's wrapped in a crow's cloak, right? There's that gray fabric material. Seemingly, it's what we think. It's wrapped in a Night's Watch cloak. It also seems to have been recently buried. That was something that I. In rereading, and we even had a couple listeners reach out to us because when we first started, they were kind of sprinting ahead, and we had talked a little bit about Dragonglass, and someone said, guys, don't forget that, that was something, it seemed like it had been freshly dug. Also, then how does Ghost locate it? Was it the cloak? Is there some smell, or there's something on that cloak? Was Ghost led there? The whole 9 yards. It is still one of the greater. It's a mystery, right? We don't actually know who left that there. We learn that John takes a few. There's some daggers. Those are passed out. Sam has one. There's some arrowheads, which thankfully, when they get all the way flash forward, when they get to Craster's, some of those are passed around. They're very limited in their spearheads, their arrowheads, and their daggers. But and Sam's the one who tells us that they freaking work. We don't know why. We don't know what they are at first or why they're significant. But anytime Ghost, I think John even is keen on the idea that if Ghost found it, and the fact that he's also thinking about Benjen. This is where I'm driving toward. John is always thinking about his uncle Benjen. And this whole chapter, when they find this, he's wondering what Benjen would do. And Corin Halfhand is showing up, and we're going to this fight. John's hoping to find Benjen along the way. Then he finds this cloak with Dragonglass. Still can't find Benjen, and he's talking to Mormont about it. So sometimes when an author puts those two side by side, John thinking about a character, and we have a mystery over here too, it makes people go, I wonder if those two are one and the same. So that's sort of the obvious one that I think people jump to out the gate. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm looking on Reddit here to see what other people have been saying, and a big one is Benjen Stark. That's what a lot of people say. It's we know that Mance Rayder is digging up graves right later, searching for the Horn of Winter, right?
Yeah.
And so some people are saying here, Benjen Stark buried the Dragonglass weapons and the Horn of Winter near the Fist of the Firstmen, because he knew that would be a place that the Night's Watch would go if they were to march against Mance Rayder. I further believe, let me see here, it says, it was on this particular ranging that Benjen buried the Horn of Joramun wrapped in his Night's Watch cloak along with his cache of Dragonglass weapons. Later in the story, Corin Halfhand returns from a raging and tells the old bear that Mance and the Free Folk had been digging holes in the snow all over the mountains, searching for something, but what that something was, the Halfhand did not know. The Halfhand requested John join him and his crew, and they went looking for Mance to see if they could figure out what the king beyond the wall was searching for. This is, when John's later captured by Ygritte. It's kind of going on here on Reddit. It says, I believe Mance had heard or suspected the horn was buried somewhere near the Frostfangs or the mountains north of the wall. This is why the Free Folk were digging holes all over the place. Whether Mance thought the horn was buried there only recently or for decades, we do not know. In the books, it is Ghost who actually founds the cache of Dragonglass along with and a horn wrapped in the Night's Watch cloak. When we see John north of the wall, that's this week's chapter. Is at the Fist of the Firstmen, and Ghost is also heavily connected to the old gods. In the books, the bundle had only been buried for a couple of weeks or so. As John noted, the cloak had not yet begun to decompose. He brings the bundle to Castle Black, cleans it, later, and gives the horn to Sam and makes a knife for the old bear Mormont with a Dragonglass blade. The horn of Joramun is the old cracked horn, which Jon gives Sam from the Dragonglass cache, the one with the bronze on it, which was the metal they used back in the time the Long Night ended. So people are saying it's Benjen, and then obviously this is going to be a big player later down the line. This horn and this Dragonglass we see here. So then they're saying, well, the show portrays Benjen as cold hands as further proof they're setting this up. That I don't believe. I do not believe that them using Benjen as cold hands justifies Benjen being cold hands just because they did it in the show. I actually feel like that was a nod. They need because Benjen literally shows up and then dies. So I feel like they just needed something as a transition. Here's a cool way to do it. I think I've been leaning more and more and more away from the idea that Benjen is cold hands. Whether Benjen is still alive or not, I don't know. Maybe he got captured. I mean, if it is Benjen who puts this Dragonglass cache here, he's then without a cloak in the north. So that's not going to help him.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Unless I was going to bring that up. So when you talk about cold hands, then you try to say, well, Benjen also wrapped all this Dragonglass in this cloak and buried it. Maybe he took someone else's cloak because he did go north with other rangers. So maybe he had an extra cloak and he did that as a marker, puts it next to the fist. That's interesting. Let me since we're in the chapter here, I'm actually gonna read some of this where they actually find the glass. What's interesting is that when Jon is kind of trying to get at he's approaching Ghost and he's trying to call Ghost to me now. Ghost will look up from drinking in the stream, and the look that he has, that Jon sees in his eyes, he describes it as terrible, like a terrible look, and a fierce, terrible look. And so then he follows Ghost, and he's thinking to himself, this is madness, right? He's among the trees. He was about to turn back when he glimpsed a flash of white off just ahead, back towards the hill. He jogged after it, cursing under his breath. So again, he's following Ghost. He says, "What have you found?" And he lowered the torch, and this is some of what you said, but I think it's neat to hear it actually from the text, which is he lowered the torch, revealing a rounded mound of soft earth. A grave, he thought, but whose? So he thinks it's a grave. We hear that Mance Rayder is trying to open graves for some reason to find this horn. And everyone says it's the horn of Jormungand, but this ends up not being a grave. He thinks it's a grave, and it's not, right? It's only 2 feet down. Not even. Let's see. It's not even that far down. So he knelt, jams his torch into the ground beside him. He says that the soil was loose and sandy. He pulled it out by the fistful. There were no stones, no roots. Whatever was here had been put here recently. 2 feet down, his fingers touched cloth. He had been expecting a corpse, fearing a corpse, but this was something else. He pushed against the fabric and felt small, hard shapes beneath, unyielding. There was no smell, no sign of grave worms. Ghost backed off and sat on his haunches, watching. So there's that whole indication that he believed it was recently buried, like the soil. Right. Nothing had really settled. So, I mean, how recently? Within a month or within a few weeks or a few days? Just moments ago. But like it's recent. And so he's thinking it's maybe a treasure or whatever. But he said so. He's thinking, is it coins? Is it whatever? And he pulls it out, and it is exact. It's Dragonglass. What the maesters call obsidian. Had Ghost uncovered some ancient cache of the children of the forest buried here for thousands of years? No. The answer is no, because we just learned it was recently buried. Unless it was something that was moved, relocated, or whatever. Maybe somebody else, a Ghost didn't find it, but maybe Benjen or someone else found it, right?
Right. Yeah, Ghost did not find it originally. It's not like he found all this Dragonglass, put it together, and then...
Right. Ghost is over there.
Right. Yeah, he's like, he's running all over the place. Here, yeah.
Yeah. And then, as you said, so beneath the Dragonglass was an old war horn. All right, and it is banded in bronze, which is interesting. The horn that they have, that they actually are claiming is, Mance has a horn. It's not this one, and so this is the one that's given to Sam, and so everyone believes Sam actually has that horn. And you've
Right.
often said that maybe the horns, that there could be some misconception in their switch or misconception in their use or whatever, because
Right. Yeah.
they're
I mean, that's
both
just a theory, and I think it'd be cool, right? If the horn they think is Dragonbinder is actually the Horn of Winter, and then, the horn that we think is the Horn of Winter is actually Dragonbinder, right? It'd be cool.
Yeah. Okay, so and then here we go. Here's the actual description of the cloak. So we get this. He's rubbing that between his fingers. He has the fabric out. It was good wool, thick, a double weave, damp but not rotted. So it's damp but not rotted, which means, again, it's recent. It is not. Right. It hasn't had time to rot. It could have not been in the ground long, and it was dark. So then he's looking even closer. Not dark. It was black. All right. So yeah. So he knew what he had. He had a cloak of a sworn brother of the Night's Watch. That was the cloak that this stuff was buried in. So I don't know, man. It is definitely a mystery. I think the other big thing is how did Ghost find it? That's the second part to this. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, when he looks up at Jon and he gives him that look, Jon describes it as different. It's, Ghost has looked at him a lot. Like, quite often he and Ghost have stared at each other, but this time it was different. There was something fierce and terrible about it. And there's red eyes, and so people will go to
right. And Ghost, and you go back to the beginning, right, when Ghost is running off, and Jon keeps calling him back, and then he just goes off. So, like, something's obviously going on with Ghost. Well, and let's take some new information we have. So we were given some new information kind of on about animals and the North, right? Mm-hmm. Remember in Fire and Blood, we learned that when Queen Alicent tried to fly her dragon over the wall, she couldn't do it. Yep. It wouldn't work. So. Right. Here's a situation in which Ghost is acting really weird north of the wall. So I think it's that's kind of cool to think about. There's maybe a similarity between the two. Like, there's something going on with magic north of the wall that's causing these, like, pretty rare animals to act differently.
That's a good point. Yeah.
I mean, maybe it's just something to consider. But yeah, so Ghost is basically almost drawn to these things, and that he wants to do it. Maybe he does smell Benjen, right? And the other, that's something else to consider. If this is relatively fresh, and if people think it's Benjen that found it, if you go down that rabbit hole, well, if this is recent, then that means Benjen's like alive and out there. I mean, relatively soon, because how many months have gone by between the beginning of the series, when Benjen goes missing almost immediately, and where we're at now? I mean, we're into the second book.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
So that means, so if it was Benjen, and maybe he only did it like a couple weeks ago, then where was he at for that entire first book when he was gone? He would have been around here somewhere.
Yeah. The thing that and I'm going to read something to you that I think you're going to find really interesting. Just as we try to look at the context of all of this and Jon's pursuit, Ghost pursuit, him following Ghost to this Dragonglass. I'm going to start with this, and then I promise you I'll get right back to the chapter here. But it's like the children of the forest they do make a pact with the Firstmen, and I think we don't really know. It's all kind of vague, and there's a lot of years that could be like they were first fighting them. They were cutting down their weirwoods, and then they come to an agreement. And so I've always kind of wondered, and what we saw in the show is that they, as maybe possibly a part of their fight with the Firstmen, that they created the others. Maybe that seems to be what's implied.
Right.
So I don't know. Let me read this. So I say that, and then let me read this here. So, Jon is realizing Ghost is he has this thought. He says, "When the dead came walking, Ghost knew. He woke me. He warned me, and he can tell Ghost wants him to go with him." This is when he starts to kind of follow him. So. He's going past the guard. He gets past him, saying he has to go get a pail of water. Jon slipped sideways between two sharpened stakes, while Ghost slid beneath them. Let me move on down here. The camp sounds faded behind him. The night was black, the slope steep, stony, and uneven. A moment's inattention would be a sure way to break an ankle, or his neck. What am I doing? He asked himself as he picked his way down. Here we go. The trees stood beneath him, warriors armed in bark and leaf. So the trees stood beneath him, warriors armored in bark and leaf, deployed in their silent ranks, awaiting the command to storm the hill. Say what?
Yeah.
There's just too many. Let me keep going. Black they seemed. It was only when his torchlight brushed against them that Jon glimpsed a flash of green. So many different things, because I go back and forth on the children, right? Do they seem black, and then once the light hits them, no, okay. I'm thinking everything that's going on.
Or they shimmer, right, or something, right?
Yeah. I'm also thinking everything that's going on in Bloodraven's Cave, I've said multiple times, is too dark down there. It's too much darkness. It looks bad. It doesn't seem right. But then you got George writing stuff like this, like, well, those trees, which are armored, in bark and leaf, it's just a connection to the Children of the Forest. I mean, Leaf is a character we actually will meet later on, and the whole thing is that they are connected to nature in that way, and they're children of the forest. So, excuse me. So they then so we get that flash of green. Faintly, he heard the sound of water flowing over rocks. Ghost vanished in the underbrush. Jon struggling after him, listening to the call of the brook, to the leaves sighing in the wind. Branches clutched at his cloak, while overhead thick limbs twinged together and shut out the stars. So that might seem insignificant, but like when you start to think of like the mystery of who is leading Ghost, and there's like that is a connect. There's references to green, almost this green site. There's references to the Children of the Forest. We're talking about stuff from the Dawn Age. We're at a significant place called the Fist of the Firstmen. So it's still kind of a mystery, but there are hints, I think, that would say we are being led to this cache, and it could be the children. I mean, the whole thing here is are the children working to reclaim the land south of the wall, or is this a redemption tour? Are they, or do they not care at all? I mean, I go to the extremes on that.
Right.
I don't know, man. So I think that is just, I find that interesting. I also find it interesting that these trees that are there, that they're armored, right? And that they look like they're ready to storm, or that they're ready to approach, to move upon the Fist of the Firstmen. Later on, that actually happens, except for it's not the trees, right? It's the White Walkers. But then you go back to, we have Whites, we have Cold Hands, who seemingly is under the control of the children, or works with them or for them, or something like a Cold White, but yet is not a thrall of the others. So I don't know, man. It's just a lot. It's still very, very, very complex, and I don't know. People have different ideas, on it, but it's one of the great mysteries. It's good.
I think it's a great question to start with, because it's still one of the big mysteries. I mean, there's so many other rabbit holes to go down, to go down as well. I mean, because a lot of what happens in this chapter itself is, they're really just setting up camp, right? And they're kind of talking about it, but hey, we're gonna wait for Corn Halfhand and stuff like that. So the bigger kind of question is this Dragonglass and this horn. So now I say let's shift a little bit from who left it to, do you think this is the Horn of Winter?
Well, okay. I think, it is definitely significant, because it could be the Horn of Winter, but then also all we have are rumors as to what the Horn of Winter can do. It's like when you have the sword, when you think of like these ancient artifacts or whatever that had great power or whatever, it's more the wielder. It's more the person who has the horn, or has Azor, or has Lightbringer, or has the sword or whatever. And sometimes there's often blood magic associated with it. So it could very well have have the potential to do something awesome in the right hands. I kind of think. I think it makes more sense that it's a horn that was right in front of us. We kind of forget about. We've lost track of it, and then now I believe it's still with Sam. I think, right? I could be wrong. I don't have that.
Yeah.
In
Yeah,
front
I
of me,
think
but,
I think so.
Yeah, and so it's getting closer to the other horn that we have, Dragon Binder or whatever. but I don't know. Like,
right? Yeah. If it is Dragon Binder, yeah, absolutely.
Because they flat out admit that the horn that Mance had and was pretending, he failed. He looked for it, didn't find it, couldn't find it. It does make me wonder if Benjen, when he was ranging, if he figured out something like the wildlings were onto something, or that they were searching these graves, and maybe he was led to one, or maybe he came across some wildlings who actually had it, and he intercepted them on their way to Mance and took it from them. And hit it, like, is that something? And then, did he then hide it? And then the werewood saw it, and then Bloodraven knows to lead Ghost and Jon there. That is a possibility. But yeah, is it the Horn of Winter? I don't know. It's definitely significant in some way. There's no reason to really, unless it's just to throw us off completely, because we have another horn that is actually thrown in the fire and burned, and it's nothing. Melisandre does away with that, but this horn, it's got a crack in it too, I think, doesn't it? It's got like it's old and worn out, and again, the fact that there's it's got bronze on it will tell you kind of how old it is, and that it could have been the Horn of Jormungand. So it'd be interesting to see if it were passed off to Mance, and what would Mance say? Would he be able to say, yeah, that actually I can see markings or indications that say yes,
That is the one. So, I mean, maybe that would, who knows? Maybe that would be why, say if you look at it, right, let's say that Benjen is the one who buried it. Let's dive down that rabbit hole. Mm-hmm. Well, so let's say, Benjen goes north, and maybe he stopped, I don't know, he hears rumors and stuff that Mance is gathering at the Frostfangs. He's gathering this huge army. So it's possible that, Benjen goes and searches that out and finds out what he's doing, and then possibly believes it's true or whatever. And so he is like, I have to find this thing first, right? Like, and so, yeah, maybe he does find it, and he's like, I got to hide this thing. Mm-hmm. And that's ultimately what's happening. It still doesn't explain what happens to Benjen, right? No, because it seems like if he buries it at the Fist of the Firstmen, that's pretty far away from the. It's not pretty far away, but it's certainly far enough away, given the territory, from the Frostfangs, that it feels like he would get captured, unless he's attacked by like whites or something, that would cause that. What
propels him to do that, and also, I think the reason I brought up the whole idea that maybe Benjen or someone was intercepting, like, if you don't really know, it's not that Benjen's out there looking for the Horn of Winter or whatever, or even looking at Dragonglass, but if you see this other group that you're in opposition with, and they're doing something that seems atypical and it's not normal, and you and all of a sudden you see them go, they're digging up graves, and you're wondering what's this all about, and then you find a small village where they dug one up, and there's a lot of buzz and excitement about it. Well, I'm gonna go figure out what that is, because that could be harmful to the Watch and to the realm, and that's where maybe then we get with that. But just in recap, while you're looking something up there, I wanted to go over the Horn of Winter. It's supposedly this legendary horn, magical properties, right? Thousands of years ago, Jormungand, the king beyond the wall, blew the horn, woke giants from the earth, and the free folk believe that the horn can bring down the wall. They believe that. That I don't know if that is that true or not. It's Ygritte who tells Jon that they had been digging up the graves, opening graves of kings, old kings and heroes, and trying to see if the horn was there. And it's, I think, Tormund later on who says that we never found it. That basically admits that, like, he says that let's see, that he was going to sound that, okay, they did have a horn, right? But the one that no one really believed it was. I mean, I don't know. To some degree, I think they were hopeful that it would be the horn. And then Melisandre, it's 8 feet long, right? It's this massive thing, and it's got these ancient, markings on it that indicate it was from the time of the Firstmen. But Melisandre throws it in the fire and burns it. Burst into green and yellow flame, and that's it. So Tormund mentions to Jon that Mance never found the Horn of Winter, instead claiming the horn burned by Melisandre as Jormung's because of its size. So that was the main thing, and that they were saying, it looks so big and it's different. I don't know. Yeah. So it also kind of when it's described reminds me of Dragonbinder, actually. Yeah. Which I think is interesting. So, you think of ice dragons, right, and you go, wait a second.
Right. So interesting thing, right? So the horn Sam has, right, it's cracked. So the idea would be maybe, that's why it didn't work or whatever before. And maybe Sam will fix it while he's at Old Town. That's some of the theories. And then, it's one of the things is that Sam ends up, keeping it, right? When he's trading everything he can for some money. He says, by the time the dealing was done, Sam was down to his boots and blacks and small clothes, and the broken horn Jon Snow had found in the fist of the Firstmen. That's from Samwell 4, A Feast for Crows. So, I mean, he's still got that horn.
Yeah. Okay, good. I thought
exactly. But it's just interesting that George makes a reference of it, obviously, in A Feast for Crows, that he still has that horn while he's traveling to Old Town.
Mm-hmm. I forgot, and it's right here. That Jon. Well, I think it's the next one. Jon does try to sound the horn, doesn't he? He tries to, and it does not work.
It doesn't work because it's broken.
Yeah. Okay. It's got that crack in it, which
it's got a crack in it, right?
Could it crack the wall? I mean, maybe. I don't know.
Maybe.
But that is, it's Sam being the one who can fix things and knows about old, and that's why Jon gives it to him, because he likes old things and might be, it's curious. It's very curious. He also has it in a place where there's a ton of knowledge,
right?
And that's
the
big,
Sphinx.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Jeez, never forget. I mean, there's so many mysteries and riddles down there that it's like, wow, this is something. And the fact that he still has it is odd.
And then here we go too. A Clash of Kings, Jon 3, just a little bit about the lore of it. And long before them came the Horned Lord, and the brother King Gendel and Gorn, and in the ancient days of Joramon, who blew the horn of winter and woke giants from the earth. Each man of them has broke his strength on the wall, or was broken by the power of Winterfell on the far side. So it doesn't necessarily mean that the wall is going to come down, right? What if it could just be a horn that controls winter or raises things out of the ground? It could raise something that's still totally possible in the books, an ice dragon, right? Yeah, I mean, hey, we'll wake dragons from stone. Well, here we have a horn that's capable of, at least from what we see, can wake giants from the earth.
Wow. Yeah. Well, and I actually go back. Let me back up for a second. So if you look on, there's a bunch of different forums where you can find information, theories.
Don't forget, Samwell Tarley is from Horn Hill.
Yeah, let's go. Yeah, let's go. That's the kind of stuff.
I'm sure there's like 10 of our listeners right there who are like, "That's it. I'm in." That's it.
Yeah, you make those those word association connections, and you're like, all right, there we go. Yeah, from Horn Hill. So
he has the horn.
He's got the horn. Yeah. He is well, and actually, you Sam. I know Jon thinks about it too, but right there later on, Sam is the one who hears that the three horn soundings, right? For when we first kind of encounter the whites or the others, but the horn that Mance Rayder has. Their whole big selling factor on this is that in ancient, the description from, however many years ago, right, is that it was supposed to be like 8 feet long or something like that. And so they find one that's like that. But I kind of think that was like somebody else. You imagine 5 to 1,000, 2,000 years ago claimed they had it, and just because it was a powerful relic and maybe gave them sway among the other tribes or whatever, other groups, factions, societies up there with the wildlings. And really, it was probably, they haven't seen its like since who knows when. I don't know, but then so
I'm with you, man. I'm with you on it 100%.
We don't know its power. We don't know. It's not been. We've never heard it sounded. So
right. We don't know what its power is. I mean, you got to think though, the fact that Sam still has this broken horn is gonna mean something. Mm-hmm. Why would you hold on to it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. No,
unless it's just like it's like the Lothston shield, right? How like Brienne, has that thing. The shield just shows up a couple. It shows up and he references it a couple times. Like, is it just some big mystery? Does Gerdas have all of these open threads? Mm-hmm. Which is entirely possible. That we think is going to lead us down. It's like he's literally drawing a maze, right? And sometimes when you're looking at a big maze, you're like, oh, okay, go down here, go down here, go down here, oh, that's a dead end. Now I got to go all the way back.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what he does.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I do. Yeah. Don't get me started on the number of different threads we have going away from each other that I don't think I don't see coming together, and I'm like, wow, that's not going to end, or we're not going to get any conclusion to it. But anyways, the horn, one of the last things I want to say about it, I guess, is that it's intriguing because there's just a lot of potential with it. The cover to Winds of Winter is a horn, right?
Yes.
Isn't that the I don't know if that's an official cover or not, but like that it's a horn. So
yes.
Is it actually depicting the horn though? Let me pull this up. I mean, is that official?
Well, we don't. I don't know. It's a horn, I suppose.
Right. So it's a horn, and it looks like it's got some bronze on it. It looks. I mean, you look at this. Why would there be a horn on the Winds of Winter cover, Matt?
Yeah. I mean, the dagger is on the dagger is on the cover of a Game of Thrones, and the dagger is pretty freaking important in that book. I mean, whether it's like some like the dagger Arya is going to use to kill the Night King, like she did in the show, isn't necessarily as important. But I mean, just in the Game of Thrones story, that dagger is pretty freaking important, right? I mean, the dagger is used to almost kill Bran, and then the dagger is something Catelyn uses, later to be like, hey, look, I mean, how did you get this Valyrian steel weapon? Baelish is like, oh, it's mine. I lost it to Tyrion. I mean, the dagger is like an item that moves the entire first story. So whether or not it is the actual Horn of Winter, it can be blown, any of this stuff, and maybe it's just Dragonbinder on the cover, and it's called Winds of Winter, and it's to lead us to think, oh, it's actually going to be about the Horn of Winter, but really it's going to be about Dragonbinder. But still, I mean, there's two horns, and the fact that he still has this horn, I think it's going to lead to something.
Yeah. No, yeah, 100%. You know what I was thinking? What would be crazy is we have another horn, as you say, Dragonbinder, that we know about. We've seen that it does some pretty terrible things to the people who blow that horn. Would it not be wild to think if that horn's purpose was to bind a dragon, and we talked about this like not too long ago, and that there being an ice dragon, that it could, if you bound an ice dragon, whether that ice dragon is in the wall or is just north of the wall somewhere in the mountains or whatever, I mean, you bind that, I'm telling you right now, the Winds of Winter are coming off of that dragon's wings. You know what I mean? Like that, there's the winds. I mean, the dragon itself is stirring them up. So, anyways, just food for thought. It's just kind of crazy. But yeah, the fact that, and I guess I'd never really thought too much about it when I look at the cover of what I think that's the cover, or what.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's got to be at this point. I mean, it's so synonymous with that book.
Yeah, I don't know if someone. I don't.
I mean, I think anyways, he has. I think he has it on his website. I'll go look, but I'm pretty sure.
That's just kind of a big deal. So, and we're dealing with Dragonbinder already, and maybe it's just to throw us off, and that's Dragonbinder. But also, Sam's got that horn, and I mean, it does have on the cover of this. It's intricate. It looks like maybe it's more intricate than what is being described about Sam's horn. So, I don't know, man. Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah, I'm looking here to see on his website, because I'm pretty sure he has on his website. There's like a Winds of Winter thing, and
yeah, but you're right though. The dagger is right there on the.
Yeah, I mean, and then you have like a crown, which is on the second one, and I think a Storm of Swords is, and a Feast for Crows and Dance of Dragons are all just kind of like, yeah, whatever. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's pretty important. I mean, let's see here. So, and of course, these have been changed,
different editions
over time.
Yeah.
Different editions. But what I kind of consider to be like the regular thing. I mean, a Feast for Crows is like a goblet, right? It's like, okay, boom, it's a goblet. Yeah, dude,
because
I don't know. I mean, I think they're all freaking important.
They are. Yeah, I mean, it's what I think is interesting is when that first edition does come
or
out,
wine
and
cup, I should say. Yeah.
Yeah, and you see what George kind of, or whoever is they're looking at and saying, yeah, put this on the cover. I mean, the first edition was just a throne,
right?
But what's interesting is that doesn't look like the Iron Throne that George. So you wonder how much George has to do with any of that or whatever. But they have to know what the object is, I guess, in the book to kind of say, yeah, this is the object we need to put on the cover. So, anyways, I guess we'll get other people's thoughts and theories on that. What do you guys think about this horn that Sam has, him being from Horn Hill? Because it's fascinating to me. He's got to fix it though. That's the thing. He's got to figure out how to.
I mean, he's got it with it. I mean, that's the thing is he's got the horn with him. He's carried it all this time, and now he's in Old Town. And we know it's not Jorah Mormont that's going to show up, that he's going to fix his grayscale. So unless they do go down that route with John Connington in the books, which is something we've talked about, then Sam's going to find something else out at Old Town, and we're going to find out what that's going to be.
Yeah, what if Sam is he's reading about the because a lot of people and a lot of the theories are that we've been misled on what the Horn of Winter or the Horn of Jorah Mormont actually is. And that because it's described as having intricate, engravings or whatever you want to call it, inscriptions. Right. And this horn that Sam has doesn't seem to have those, or if they were there, they were worn away. Because if it's that old, I mean, maybe that's possible. So the evidence against it is that it doesn't seem to sound like it's what we see Sam holding and John trying to blow is not what is described by the wildlings and others as the Horn of Winter. So, but if Sam were at the Citadel and he reads like, he starts to read a description of it and he goes, holy cow, Gods be good, here it is. I got it right here. I'm holding the horn. I don't know.
Right. But what if it's like, I'm trying to think here. Is it Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade where they're going after the Holy Grail, right? And isn't there like 3 grails or something? And he has to like grab the right one, otherwise like everything's gonna fall. And like, so am I remembering that correctly?
Oh, there's tons of there's tons.
There's a bunch of it, and he has to pick the right one, and so he ends up picking like the most basic one.
Yeah.
Because he was like, well, he was a carpenter, right? So like it would be a wood, like it would be the most basic one. Well, what if that's the same thing that with the horn, and it's like, it's not going to be the super elaborate thing. It's going to be something relatively basic.
Right. Yeah, that would be that could be that definitely could be. It makes sense. Makes sense that we're looking for something that's really fancy and that's not. It's not what we need, and if it is that old, it could be wore out. It could have been a really awesome, epic-looking horn back in the day. And again, I go back to maybe it's not even the horn. Maybe it's more about like
who blows it.
That kind of
maybe
stuff.
You need somebody from Horn Hill.
Yeah. Did you know? And this is just a random thing. I was reading ahead in a Storm of Swords, and I'm almost done. By the way, I'm blitzing through just because I'm trying to really cover some more ground again. And Melisandre is talking about Lightbringer, and I bring this up because it's like magical artifacts, these things, these objects, swords, horns, whatever. And so in R'hllor, there's just this, and we got to remember that Melisandre is also from Ashai too. So a Shadowbinder, that she's her background's mysterious. But she says that that Lightbringer was forged in the fires that destroyed the 7 gods. You know, and I was thinking about that the other day, and I was just like, the seven. Now wait a second. We're talking about like the set when the seven come into, you know, air quote existence, or the Andals, right? Kind of, and then I'm thinking back to when Lightbringer was supposed to be around and its origin story and how it was forged in these fires that brought destruction to the seven gods. Well, I thought there's just one god, you know. But anyways, that was kind of so a lot of this stuff can get kind of construed and lost over time, especially when we're talking thousands of years.
And let me just read one last thing here, and then we'll close up shop with the Horn of Winter here. So some theories against it is that the Whites or the others pay no attention to the Horn when they encounter Sam, not even the lone other that Sam comes face to face with, who he kills. But I guess my thing is there's a difference between a broken piece of junk and maybe the Horn of Winter. Maybe it's not powerful. Who knows? But it's almost like if it's broke, it's not really the same as a true magical object because he's gotta fix it, right? It's almost like the difference between a dragon egg and a dragon. People thought those dragon eggs would never hatch. They're like, yeah, you know, they're great, but the dragons are gone. They're never coming back.
Right.
So there's a difference between a, you know, petrified dragon egg and a big full life dragon, right? Two totally different things. And it's only Danny who can really sense the magic in them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get that. No, I'm with you. I think that's, to me, that one was kind of weak. I saw that. Right. I read that as well, and it's like, so what? I mean, that's not their charge. They're not looking for that. I mean, also, I don't know. We don't know enough about the others and their lifespan and whether or not that other would actually know it was around. I mean, are they like,
right?
How old are they?
Exactly. It may be able to control the other, so who knows? Anyway.